When Browns head coach Todd Monken quietly stripped Shedeur Sanders of first-team practice reps in Berea, the media expected an explosive viral meltdown from college football's most polarizing rookie. Instead, what Shedeur did at the microphone didn't just stun every beat reporter in the room, it exposed a calculating masterclass playbook passed down directly from primetime himself. While headline-hungry media outlets rushed to declare a full-blown quarterback crisis, Sanders' composure flipped the entire locker room dynamic on its head. In this video, we break down the exact words that caught Cleveland's veteran leadership completely off guard and shattered Monken's secret test. Here is how a routine practice demotion ultimately accelerated Shedeur's blueprint to capture the QB1 job. The morning air in Berea carried the familiar crisp tension that always accompanies late summer NFL training camp, but the atmosphere on the practice field shifted the exact moment the offense gathered for team drills. For days, the routine had been set in stone. Shedeur Sanders, the rookie whose every movement had been filmed, analyzed, and debated on national sports television, was meant to step behind the starting center to anchor the first team unit. Instead, as the whistle blew, Sanders remained on the sideline, helmet resting loosely in his hand, watching Deshaun Watson trot out with the starting offensive line. At first, the beat writers along the fence barely registered the swap, assuming it was a brief contextual package or a routine physical breather. But as the period stretched on and Watson logged every single high-leverage snap alongside the starting wide receivers, the silence in the media tent turned into a frantic flurry of laptop typing and rapid phone calls. What was supposed to be a standard Tuesday rotation had instantly morphed into the premier storyline of Cleveland's offseason, signaling a dramatic shift in how the coaching staff planned to manage their high-profile quarterback room. Within minutes, the subtle practice tweak had spilled past the fences of the training facility, igniting a wildfire across social media that threatened to overwhelm the team's carefully curated preseason narrative. By noon, local sports talk radio was flooded with furious callers, and national commentators were already clipping practice footage to speculate on a sudden rift between the rookie phenom and the coaching staff. Local beat writers fired off urgent columns questioning whether Sanders had hit an invisible rookie wall or if head coach Todd Monken was intentionally sending a stern message to the young signal caller. The instant online uproar treated the rep switch not as a mundane practice decision, but as a full-blown organizational demotion that exposed underlying tension in the building. Hot take shows quickly seized on the footage, dissecting every frame of Sanders standing near the draft boards, searching his facial expressions for any trace of frustration, entitlement, or dismay. The media machine thrived on the promise of drama, knowing that any perceived friction involving a Sanders family member guaranteed massive engagement and endless debates. For an organization that had spent years trying to maintain stability and insulate itself from external noise, the practice field swap had inadvertently created a circus, setting the stage for one of the most heavily anticipated media scrums of the entire league year. As practice wound down and the team filed into the fieldhouse, the tension in the press room was palpable, with journalists packing shoulder to shoulder near the backdrop, waiting for Sanders to take the podium. Everyone in the room knew the stakes. A single offhand remark, a heavy sigh, or a veiled shot at the coaching staff's decision would instantly dominate the national news cycle for weeks. The beat writers had their questions lined up, designed to push the rookie into taking a stance on whether he felt slighted by losing his designated first-team reps. The stage was set for a classic training camp confrontation, where a rookie's ego meets the harsh, unapologetic reality of professional football hierarchy. Yet as Sanders adjusted the microphones and looked out at the sea of recording devices, the heavy, anxious atmosphere in the room stood in stark contrast to his own calm, unbothered demeanor. The inciting incident at Berea had officially reached its boiling point, and every eye in the football world was fixed on the rookie to see whether he would yield to the media's pressure or rewrite the entire narrative on the spot. To fully grasp the magnitude of what transpired on that warm August afternoon in Berea, you have to dig past the headlines and examine the cold, hard numbers recorded in the Cleveland Browns' internal snap count log. Up until day 10 of training camp, the quarterback rotation under new head coach Todd Monken had followed a precise metronomic cadence designed to give both quarterbacks an equal, transparent environment to earn the starting job. Over the first 9 practices, Shedeur Sanders and veteran Deshaun Watson had split first-team reps almost perfectly down the middle, logging roughly 45 snaps each behind the projected starting offensive line. This calculated parity allowed evaluators, media, and players alike to compare both signal callers on an even playing field against the same primary defensive packages. But when Saturday rolled around, a day Monken explicitly designated in his morning press conference as Shedeur's turn to anchor the top unit, the practice tracking chart revealed a jarring anomaly. Instead of the expected 35 starter snaps going to the rookie, Watson took 100% of the first-team reps, leaving Sanders to split remaining second-team work with rookie teammate Dillon Gabriel. To the casual observer, a single afternoon of skewed practice distribution might seem like minor camp housekeeping, but in the hyper-calibrated world of modern NFL offense, it represents a massive structural shift. In professional football, first-team reps are far more than a symbolic gesture of status. They are the fundamental currency of quarterback development and offensive continuity. Taking snaps alongside veteran offensive linemen like Joel Bitonio means operating behind a wall that executes protection calls with surgical precision, allowing a developing quarterback to drop back with a clean pocket and process coverage reads without immediate unblocked pressure. Furthermore, timing-based routes with elite wideouts like Amari Cooper require hundreds of physical repetitions to master the exact micro-adjustments that separate a completed throw from a game-breaking interception. When a young quarterback is abruptly demoted to working with the second-team reserve unit, the entire physical ecosystem degrades instantly. Backup offensive linemen miss subtle line stunt calls, forcing the rookie to speed up his footwork, drift off his drop-back point, and abandon fundamental mechanics just to escape immediate pressure. Receiver routes become slightly off-schedule, throwing off the rhythmic cadence that Monken's spread-style passing system relies upon to generate explosive plays. This mechanical disruption directly alters a young passer's internal clock, often forcing them to play sped up or overcompensate with their arm talent when the pocket collapses ahead of schedule. When practice snaps are suddenly redirected, it also triggers subtle psychological and political ripples throughout the entire locker room culture. Veteran offensive players naturally look to the player taking first-team reps as the vocal leader who commands the huddle, sets the daily standard, and controls the rhythm of practice. When a head coach publicly commits to one rotation in the morning and quietly executes a complete pivot by mid-afternoon, it leaves players questioning the underlying strategy driving the quarterback competition. Inside the building, whispers inevitably begin to circulate about whether organizational politics, salary cap pressures, or front office intervention are overriding pure merit-based competition on the field. For a rookie trying to prove he possesses both the tactical command and emotional authority to lead an NFL franchise, having those critical first-team reps snatched away threatens to derail his momentum and undermine his standing among the veterans. Yet, understanding how practice switches impact a quarterback's physical rhythm only reveals half of the equation. The real intrigue lies in why Monken pulled the trigger on this sudden adjustment in the first place. Was this an intentional old-school loyalty play to preserve the standing of a high-priced veteran? Or was it a calculated stress test engineered to see how the young phenom would handle his first true adversity in a Browns uniform? In the high-stakes environment of NFL training camp, head coaches often use practice reps as subtle behavioral instruments, monitoring whether a young quarterback reacts to frustration with childish resentment or elevated focus. Monken, known throughout his coaching career as a fiery, unfiltered competitor who demands absolute toughness, knew that any crack in Sanders' armor would instantly be exposed under the harsh spotlight of Northeast Ohio media. By altering the rotation without warning, the coaching staff effectively threw a tactical curveball at their prized rookie, shifting the battlefield from physical pass distribution to a high-pressure test of mental resilience. When Shedeur Sanders stepped up to the post-practice podium in Berea, the packed media room was practically vibrating with expectation. Armed with sharp questions about Todd Monken's sudden rep swap, reporters were primed for a fiery quote or a hint of rookie frustration that could fuel national headlines for days. Instead, Sanders leaned casually against the microphone, adjusted his hat, and met the barrage of flashbulbs with a disarming, unbothered smile. When the inevitable first question was fired at him, asking directly how he felt about having his scheduled first team snaps yanked away after Monken's morning announcement, Shedeur didn't blink. "At the end of the day, I don't manage the reps, I manage my execution," he said evenly, his voice completely calm and unhurried. In one sentence, Sanders expertly shifted the focus away from potential coaching room politics and back onto his personal preparation, refusing to grant the media the dramatic meltdown they were waiting to broadcast. Analyzing the tape of his press conference reveals an absolute masterclass in media navigation, particularly when contrasted with how typical high-profile rookies handle sudden adversity. A lesser quarterback, fueled by ego or sheer surprise, might have offered passive-aggressive size, heavy body language, or subtle complaints about broken promises regarding the depth chart. They might have pointed to their strong statistical performance over the first 9 days of camp, or grumbled about losing vital chemistry with starting receivers like Amari Cooper. But every time a beat writer tried to lead Shedeur into a trap regarding internal team hierarchy, he skillfully sidestepped the bait, asked point blank if he felt the sudden rotation switch was unfair given his workload up to that point. Sanders dropped another defining line. "Fairness is for people waiting on external validation. My job is to maximize whatever snaps I get, whether that's 5 reps with the ones or 20 with the twos." This relentless focus on personal development completely neutralized the external noise, leaving reporters with virtually no controversial sound bites to spin into drama. Where national pundits expected a petulant reaction from a rookie born into sports royalty, Sanders displayed an uncanny, veteran-like stoicism that reframed the entire situation. Rather than treating the rep redistribution as a public demotion, he spoke about it as a routine operational variable in his daily progression. "When you're out there on the field, the defense doesn't care who's blocking for you or who's running the route," Sanders noted, breaking down the cold reality of playing quarterback in the NFL. "If the standard is high execution, my process can't change based on who is standing in the huddle next to me." By treating second-team reps with the exact same gravity as starter reps, he stripped Monken's tactical decision of any potential negative psychological weight. What made Sanders' podium presence so compelling was the stark contrast between his unshakable composure and the media's hyperventilating coverage outside the building. While commentators and callers analyzed every detail of the rep split as evidence of an organizational crisis, Shedeur remained completely detached from the chaos. He didn't just diffuse the immediate narrative, he signaled to his head coach, his veteran teammates, and the front office that he possessed the emotional discipline required to navigate the pressure cooker of Cleveland football. By refusing to engage in locker room politics or publicly question coaching authority, Sanders turned what was designed as a stress test into a striking display of professionalism, proving that his focus rested entirely on proving his worth through work rather than demanding status through the press. To understand how Shedeur Sanders was able to neutralize the Berea media storm so effortlessly, one must examine the masterclass education he received long before stepping onto an NFL practice field. Growing up as the son of Pro Football Hall of Famer Deion Sanders meant that public scrutiny was not an occasional byproduct of athletic success, but a permanent, ambient reality of daily life. From his earliest days playing youth football through his high school state championships and high-profile collegiate career at Jackson State and Colorado, Shedeur operated under a blinding national spotlight. Where most young athletes encounter their first true media trial upon entering the professional ranks, Shedeur had already spent a decade as a central figure in sports television segments, documentary crews, and digital media campaigns. Every throw, gesture, and post-game comment was dissected by national analysts, effectively acclimating him to the overwhelming noise that breaks lesser prospects. By the time Todd Monken altered the practice script in Cleveland, the high-stakes environment felt less like a shocking ambush and more like a familiar, rehearsed stage. Central to this lifelong preparation was what insiders often refer to as the primetime media school, an unwritten, rigorous curriculum instilled by Deion Sanders to safeguard his sons against the predictable traps of sports journalism. Having navigated the peak of 1990s media frenzy himself, Deion understood that local beat writers and national pundits operate on a currency of emotional volatility. The core rule of the primetime philosophy was simple: never supply external observers with the narrative ammunition they need to build locker room drama. Deion taught Shedeur that microphones are not therapeutic outlets for personal frustration, but strategic public instruments. A young quarterback who complains about practice rotation, questions a coach's motives, or hints at unfair treatment provides media outlets with a multi-day storyline that inevitably creates divisions within the team. By teaching his sons to separate their internal competitive drive from their outward public communication, Deion equipped Shedeur with a psychological shield that rendered traditional media pressure virtually useless. When Monken pulled Shedeur from the first team unit, the local media immediately deployed standard line of questioning tactics designed to provoke an emotional response. Reporters pressed on issues of fairness, draft status, and public promises, hoping to elicit a defensive declaration of entitlement. But Shedeur's responses reflected the exact discipline taught at the family dinner table. By deflecting personal grievances and framing every query through the lens of continuous self-improvement and squad cohesion, he effectively closed off every avenue for sensational reporting. The beat writers left the media room without a single quote that could be spun into a controversy between the rookie quarterback and the coaching staff. What was engineered to be a sensational headline about a rookie QB throwing a fit turned into a story about quiet professionalism and emotional maturity. This immunity to media manipulation extends far beyond simple press conference deflection. It serves as a critical strategic advantage in the modern, hyper-connected NFL landscape. In an era where digital noise can easily destabilize an NFL locker room, a quarterback who refuses to engage in public feuds becomes a stabilizing force for the entire building. Veteran players, coaching staff, and front office executives quickly recognize when a young player possesses the poise to handle high-pressure markets without becoming a distraction. Rather than being compromised by his famous lineage or the intense scrutiny surrounding his every move, Shedeur used the lessons of the Deion blueprint to project absolute control. By treating Monken's rep switch as a routine operational metric rather than a personal slight, he proved that his mindset was immune to external chaos. In doing so, Shedeur showed that the legendary primetime heritage wasn't just about flash and charisma, but about an unyielding tactical discipline built to survive the harsh realities of professional football. In the insular world of an NFL locker room, real respect is never awarded based on draft capital, social media clout, or high-profile family legacy. It is forged entirely in how a player handles adversity when nobody else is watching. While external media outlets spent days hyper-analyzing Todd Monken's surprise practice swap as a sign of trouble, the quiet dignity Shedeur Sanders displayed behind closed doors sent a far more profound signal to the Cleveland Browns' veteran leadership core. Standing at the center of that locker room are respected figures like All-Pro wideout Amari Cooper, perennial Pro Bowl guard Joel Bitonio, and defensive powerhouse Myles Garrett, battle-tested leaders who have navigated countless training camp controversies and can immediately spot the difference between entitlement and genuine professional focus. When the rep redistribution occurred, these team captains weren't paying attention to the sensationalized headlines outside. They were carefully watching how the rookie carried himself when the camera lenses were capped. Instead of brooding in the corner, retreating into isolated quietness, or complaining to his inner circle, Shedeur responded by quietly elevating his daily preparation. Bitonio and the starting offensive line noticed that Sanders was the first player sitting in the quarterback meeting room the following morning, meticulously dissecting video footage of second-team offensive snaps to clean up his pre-snap checks and pocket footwork. Cooper observed a rookie who, despite being temporarily relegated to reserve sets, stayed late after formal practice ended to throw extra route trees with developmental receivers, treating those supplemental reps with the same fierce intensity as a fourth-quarter drive in November. Even Garrett, whose dominant presence sets the physical and emotional standard for the entire roster, publicly acknowledged the rookie's steady, unbothered mentality. In an environment where high-profile rookies often arrive carrying an aura of assumed privilege, Shedeur's decision to silently embrace the grind without uttering a single complaint completely flipped the locker room narrative in his favor. This subtle shift in teammate perception is precisely what makes the Berea practice controversy such a critical turning point in Cleveland's quarterback competition. Modern NFL head coaches recognize that naming a starting signal caller is only half the battle. The true challenge lies in selecting a quarterback who has earned the deep-seated trust and physical backing of the 30 men standing in the huddle beside him. By refusing to let a sudden practice demotion break his focus or fuel external drama, Sanders demonstrated the exact emotional maturity and resilience required to command a room full of seasoned, highly paid veterans. His veteran teammates didn't just see a gifted playmaker with elite arm talent, they saw an adaptable, mentally tough competitor who puts team cohesion and personal development ahead of his own ego. Ultimately, what was initially framed as a setback for Shedeur Sanders may very well serve as the ultimate catalyst that cements his long-term claim on the starting job. In modern football, trial-by-fire moments often clarify a rookie's true character far better than smooth, uninterrupted progress ever could. As the long NFL season unfolds, injuries, shifting depth charts, and tactical adjustments inevitably test every team's depth and resolve. Monken's unexpected practice switch didn't expose the flaw in Sanders' game. Instead, it accelerated his maturation process and validated his readiness for the professional stage. By conquering the mental stress test, earning the profound respect of locker room leaders like Cooper, Bitonio, and Garrett, and maintaining an unwavering focus on execution, Shedeur didn't just survive his first true NFL storm, he proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that he possesses the command and composure to lead the franchise forward when his number is officially called.